This is QTV News coming to you live from our studios on Caraba Avenue, and I am Ashma Oba. Thanks for joining us. Here are the main news headlines. A state-owned enterprise bill has been introduced at the National Assembly to address the poor performance of state-owned enterprises. The Minister of Youth and Sports presided over the opening ceremony of the National Youth Conference and Festival in Banjul on Saturday. The direct Aid Gambia office, in partnership with Sharp Medical Center, began its annual week-long free surgery program on Monday for 40 patients. The National Environment Agency on Saturday organized a project steering meeting for the implementation of $5.6 million GEF 6 Land and Seascape Planning and Ecosystem Restoration Project. In international news, on Thursday, the final day of the U.S.-Africa Leaders Summit, U.S. President Joe Biden announced that the U.S. will support the African Union's inclusive in the G20 or Group of 20. Those were main headlines. Now the news in detail. The Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs has introduced a state-owned enterprises bill at the National Assembly. State-owned enterprises in the Gambia are reported to have a track record of low returns, low-quality service delivery, and increased losses, resulting in operational and financial underperformance. Modulamin Choi was at the National Assembly, and he now reports.
There are 13 state-owned commercial enterprises in the Gambia. They operate in sectors including infrastructure, electricity and water supply, petroleum, communication and transportation. Despite reforms including privatization and annual subventions by government, these enterprises have failed to deliver meaningful financial returns to the state coffers. The Minister of Petroleum and Energy, Abdullah Job, represents the Finance Minister in the second reading of the bill.
The bill will therefore repeal the existing Public Enterprises Act of 1990, and it will also cater for the introduction of various new provisions in line with international standards. Some of the key additions in this bill includes establishment of an SOE commission to serve as an oversight and regulatory body for the SOEs. The need for government to bail out SOEs through the national budget, provided they incur losses that may be caused by obligation imposed on them to deliver public service at prices that do not generate revenue sufficient to cover the full cost of their services.
State-owned enterprises are particularly affected by poor operational and financial performance, according to the minister, including NAWEC, GAMTEL, and the Gambia Ports Authority. Most of these state-owned enterprises are said to have suffered from poor operational and financial performance due to a breakdown in financial discipline and political interference. National Assembly members debate the merits and principles of the bill, expressing popular support for it, and are optimistic that it will help address the problems associated with state-owned enterprises in the Gambia. Bakari B. Kora and Suebu Ture, NAMs for Upper Fuladu West and Woolly East constituencies, respectively, are among the NAMs who participate in the bill's second reading debate.
I think the Honorable Minister of Finance once told this August Assembly that a particular state-owned enterprise is in debt of almost $2 billion. So that is telling you it is time that this bill has come to the Parliament so that the loopholes can be fixed.
And they were supposed to improve the services of the GAMTEL by creating some areas somewhere, to compete. I don't see anything like that because in my constituency, even though I followed them until I got tired, there is nothing done there. And when I followed them to put those antennas there, it is not done. I followed the private one, that is the QCell. You know what? They are now building 3 antennas in my own constituency. So we must empower these SOEs so that they'll be able to compete.
Through the Finance Ministry, the Gambia government has initiated reforms. Key among them is the introduction of performance contracts to challenge, measure and evaluate the performance of state-owned enterprises. Collectively, state-owned enterprises in the Gambia have a net asset value of more than $32 billion, which is around 26% of GDP. According to the Finance Ministry, a 4% return on these assets paid to the government as dividend could yield more than $1.28 billion. The State-Owned Enterprises Bill was read for the second time and will proceed to further scrutiny at committee level. Mahmoud Lamin Choi, QTV News.
The Minister of Youth and Sports on Saturday presided over the opening ceremony of the National Youth Conference and Festival in Banjul. The event is to discuss issues related to youth empowerment and employment, among other things. Usman Jidabo attended and he filed this report.
The 13th edition of the National Youth Conference brought together about 2,000 young people from the West Coast region, Lower River region, Central and Upper River regions, as well as KMC and BCC. Usman Fati, the chairman of the National Youth Council, advises the youth representatives to take this session seriously and critically consider issues affecting them, which include migration and lack of job opportunities.
What do we think could be done to curtail these ugly incidences? You should be able to come out with attainable points that could help in ameliorating these problems. We are faced with issues of drugs, issues of gender, and climate change, to name a few. I will advise that you attend this session and be regular and punctual, because this is the only way, through a discussion, we will be able to come up with tangible solution problem.
Basiru Gay, a member of the National Youth Council representing the chair of Youth Connect Africa, highlights some of the challenges the youth go through in their own countries and outline how Youth Connect Africa is helping to solve some of these challenges.
As a result, these challenges, individually and collectively, obstruct the youth from meaningfully contributing to the social, economic, and political transformation of their nation and the African continent at large. The main focus of the Youth Connect Africa is equipping already existing initiatives with technical and financial resources. Youth Connect is a platform designed to connect the youth for socio-economic transformation.
Mr. Gay reveals that the purpose of Youth Connect Africa is to provide holistic solutions to alleviate the challenges faced by African youths. Rohim Malik Lo, the mayor of Banjul City Council, advises the representatives, especially girls, to make the best use of the event to share their respective inputs for the greater good of women and girls in the country and assure them of a successful NECONF.
You must make sure that you come out with great and attainable solutions that will guide all the relevant stakeholders in the affairs of the youth. Fellow youth, this is your city, and make the best use of the NECOF to explore the city.
Bakaruwai Baji is the Minister of Youth and Sports.
We expect some intellectual exchange between the panelists and the delegates. This exchange should be healthy and devoid of any personal attacks. You are here because your region, your organization, or your country has believed that you'll be able to contribute your voice towards the better Gambia for the people living in this country.
Minister Baji commends young people for their hard work and determination and dedication for acquiring new skills to be self-employed. For QTV News, Osman G. Dabo.
Now, the Direct Aid Gambia office, in partnership with Sharap Medical Center, began its annual week-long free surgery program on Monday for 40 patients with various medical conditions. Ansumani Sonyasi reports.
These patients are all Gambians from less privileged families, battling various health conditions. Thanks to this annual surgery camp, they will benefit from free surgery and receive quality medical attention throughout their recovery process. Ansumana Kinte, Human Resource Manager, and Abdul Bakif Tufik, Center Manager at Direct Aid, both say the partnership with Sarab is a worthy one that has benefited many people and thanked patients for their trust and cooperation.
Direct Aid, yes, we are the sponsors. We might not be able to have all the monies that some of the operations may require. But due to collaboration And the Direct Aid Sarab always come to our level and understand that yes, Direct Aid as a charity, we have to definitely be with them.
All of you know Direct Aid is international NGO which is working in Africa, more than 30 countries, doing purposely on helping Africa in education, health, and development, as well as Gambia's.
Babukar Gay, matron at Sarab, and Dr. Dennis Delafe Udelens, Chief Medical Officer at Sarab, also commended their partnership with Direct Aid for what they describe as a life-changing venture that should be supported by all, and explain some of the conditions they will be treating this year.
It is a glorious occasion in the sense that Direct Aid, in collaboration with Sarab, is able yet again to conduct a surgical camp with 40 patients who we will treat their medical condition and give them a better life.
We had a camp where we did a surgery for 30 patients, 32 surgeries in 30 patients, and everything was fine, successful. Our patients were very happy. So I would like to thank Direct Aid for choosing us again for this task.
Fatoumata Diba, Assistant Director of Health Services at the Ministry of Health, and patients Momoduba, Khadijatu Saho, and Suleiman Masmbai were full of praise and gratitude for Direct Aid and Sarab for the treatment program. Launched in 2017, this humanitarian initiative aims to provide top-quality medical support to patients battling various health conditions and who cannot afford surgery or treatment. Ansmane Sonyasi for KTV News.
We will now go for a short commercial break, but when we return, we have more local as well as international news stories for you. Do stay tuned.
Inco Home Choice ya kenun ne serung adiate la kiliano le ninang fanay nata ko tenke aning 10% discount hade 10% discount si inco la bagaso bagasang Gambia banko kanjang na dinkral beto kabo December karo tilifolo kata fo December fadula ye construction bagaso sotalienne generator, welding tools, aluminium tools, carpentry tools, water pumps, electrical tools, plumbing tools, safety equipment, kata fo pusfusol, washing machines aning garden tools ñin bagasi jama albe sola la menna pour ka do ko kala watali bari kataba kalita Inco Home Choice jibe ibale jimpex wala liye ko man ñin nombato 7398863 wala birkama 3039300 wala Senegambia 3296967 wala fani sukota ñin nombato 3417619 Inco Home Choice ñul na tele pour ka jamano dahandi.
House of Chicken by King Baker Foods on Senegambia Highway, where every bite tells a story.
Welcome back. If you're just tuning in, you're watching QTV News with me, Ashma Uba. Now, as part of a $5.6 million GAF6 land and seascape planning and ecosystem restoration project, the National Environment Agency on Saturday organized the project steering meeting for the implementation of the project. The story by Lena Igwenyiba is narrated by Julden Jai.
The funds for this 5-year project were obtained from the Global Environment Fund in 2021. The project is based on a cooperation agreement with the United Nations Environment Program. By its design on a participatory and inclusive approach, the project will put the participation of local communities and local government authorities at the center of its intervention strategy and will place particular emphasis on addressing gender-differentiated outcomes in participation, decision-making and benefits. The meeting will discuss, review and approve the project's annual work plan and budget for 2023, validate the project's annual activity report for 2022 and address other key issues. Adamu Buhari is the project's tax manager.
The objective is to create an enabling environment for the land use, for the land planning, seascape planning, to support the livelihood and the integration on biodiversity conservation and sustainable land management in the planning system, but also in the livelihood development for the local communities.
A major objective of the project is to provide the Gambia with a conducive environment for developing national capacity to lead the reform of land use and marine spatial planning policies and to implement land and seascape management. Mr. Buhari emphasized that the 5-year project has clear objectives.
We always recognize that the land use planning in the Gambia is a challenge, and there is a need to really have a policy and to have some framework on which the stakeholder can rely on to develop the country, to do investment in the rural development area.
There are several factors that contribute to land degradation, such as inappropriate land use, increased competition for land, unsustainable agricultural practice, overgrazing, and deforestation. There have been numerous efforts made at different levels to resolve some of these threats to the sustainable use and management of land and seascape resources. However, the results remain patchy. Dauda Baji, Executive Director of NEA, assures the sustainability of the project.
We are taking what you call bottom-top approach, where we are trying to use the local people to take ownership, so that when the project is not there, life will still continue. Because over the years we have seen projects, they come and go, and they don't change much of the people's livelihood.
Furthermore, the project will provide several benefits to the landscape and seascape and land resources, as well as contribute to the development of human and institutional capacity. At the local level, training and awareness-raising programs will be developed to promote the adaptation and dissemination of integrated national resource management. For QTV News, I am Julden Jai.
Now, Starfish Skills Center in Lamen held its graduation ceremony on Saturday, the first since the center was established 5 years ago. Umi Awaba attended, and this is her report.
Starfish Skills Center was established in November 2018 to promote TVET education and self-employment. The center trains young people in skills such as cookery, tailoring, hairdressing, soap making, tie and dye, amongst other vocational skills. The event started with a march past to the school hall, where family members, well-wishers and friends were greeted. Madeline Mendy, commonly known as Mama Kujabi, proprietor and headmistress of Starfish Skills Center, explains how the institution started.
I started with one student. After only 1 week, she was given in marriage and quit. By then, I was the only teacher managing the school. Later, I have more students and employ more staff. The opportunity was I did not have formal education, and skills training helped me to become independent and raise my children. So I want to give opportunities to the young boys and girls so that they become independent.
Starting up an institution comes with challenges. However, those challenges did not stop Mama Kujabi from pursuing her dream of helping young people.
During the lockdown, it was very challenging because what I gathered at that time, I paid my staff because I couldn't leave them. I have to pay them. So when we come back, it was very challenging to maintain the center, and I increased the fee, and most of my students quit. I grow vegetables. I sell many things. Those money that I gather in small business, in order to help them, I was able to have those small money in order to call some of my students to come back.
Seiko Jame, one of the graduates, and a migrant returnee, is the only male graduating. Having trained to be a chef, Sekou spoke about his experience in the center.
And then Mama Kujabi more motivate.
I am a migrant returnee. It was Mama Kujabi who motivated me to achieve my dream. I am now a chef and I love cooking. I am currently on attachment and I am qualified in my area of work, and someday I hope to work in a big hotel.
Mathematics is an important subject in whatever one is learning. Modu Sanyang is the maths teacher at the Skills Center.
Anything you do in life, maths is part of it. Maths is part of it. You have to do some calculation. Even if you are doing some makeup, you need calculation. Even if you are doing sewing, you need maths. You need something. You need calculation so that you can improve yourself. Even if you are doing, when it comes to cookery, pastry, you need maths so that you will make it equally. Anything you do in life, maths is part of it.
The graduation ceremony also featured an exhibition: clothes, shoes, hairstyles, bags, accessories, soaps, embroidery, food, and among other things made by the students. Mama Kujabi presented sewing machines and electric ovens for the graduates to start their own businesses. She has also promised to provide work for the graduates by employing them. For QTV News, Umi Awaba.
That story by Umi Awaba will lead us to international news in a moment. Now, on the final day, on Thursday, of the U.S.-Africa Leaders Summit, U.S. President Joe Biden announced that the U.S. will support the African Union's inclusive in the G20 or Group of 20, a collection of a world's largest economies that meet regularly to discuss global issues. Momodu Mboj has more.
African leaders from 49 countries and the African Union gathered in Washington for a three-day summit that began on Tuesday with the focus on climate change, food security, trade partnerships and other issues. This is the first U.S.-Africa summit in 8 years, after President Barack Obama last hosted it in 2014. According to one analyst, Africa indeed benefited from several initiatives from that summit, although many remain unfulfilled. President Biden's announcement has been described as a charm offensive to position the U.S. as a partner to African countries amid competition with China. And it comes on the heels of a $55 billion pledge to Africa for food security, climate change and trade. African leaders have for years pushed for an increase in Africa's representation in the G20. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa directly asked President Biden to support EU membership in September. And Senegal's President Macky Sall, chair of the African Union, has also pressed Biden on the issue and has written to him several times. Similar pressure is gathering pace for Africa to retain 2 permanent seats on the UN Security Council. Recent events have exposed the diminishing influence of the U.S. in Africa. In the Russia-Ukraine war, for instance, the United States could not secure many African countries' support during UN votes to condemn Russia for the invasion. According to one analyst, while the majority of African countries clearly sided with Ukraine, 28 out of 54, only Eritrea voted against the resolution. Nearly a third refrained from taking sides, 17 out of 54. That's if one understands abstention to be halfway between a yes and a no. 8 countries were absent. AU membership of the G20, it is argued, could make it easier for Biden to secure their cooperation on issues like Ukraine and climate change. But more significantly, the continent will have a bigger voice in one of the most influential bodies in global affairs. African leaders have for years expressed frustration at being left out of discussions on global affairs and crises that affect them, from the coronavirus to food security. As one analyst has observed, they have become bystanders, while Western countries drive most international bodies. Currently, from the African continent, only South Africa is a member of the G20. The group was formed in 1999 as a bloc that would bring together the most important industrialized and developing economies to discuss international economic and financial stability. It comprises 19 countries and the European Union, and over the years has evolved into a major forum. According to analysts, bilateral meetings on the summit sidelines have occasionally led to major international agreements. AU membership offers the continent an opportunity to articulate common interests and adopt common positions. But, say analysts, African leaders also need to step up. Among other things, they need to answer whether the state in Africa is still fit for purpose, as it was designed to be extractive and exploitative, which has produced parasitic governance across the continent. Without the house cleaning, it is argued, Africa risks being cherry-picked by superpowers. China and Russia also have their Africa summits. The hope is, according to one observer, in future, superpower leaders will visit Addis Ababa instead of 50-plus African leaders visiting one leader elsewhere. For QTV News, I am Mamadou Mbouch.
That's all for this news, but before we go, a recap of our main news headlines. A state-owned enterprises bill has been introduced at the National Assembly to address the poor performance of state-owned enterprises. The Minister of Youth and Sports presided over the opening ceremony of the National Youth Conference and Festival in Banjul on Saturday. The Direct Aid Gambia office, in partnership with Sharab Medical Center, began its annual week-long free surgery program on Monday for 40 patients. The National Environment Agency on Saturday organized a project steering meeting for the implementation of a $5.6 million GEF6 land and seascape planning and ecosystem restoration project. In international news, on Thursday, the final day of the U.S.-Africa Leaders Summit, U.S. President Joe Biden announced that the U.S. will support the African Union's inclusive in the G20 or Group of 20. That's all for this edition of the news. Join us again at 10 p.m. for another bulletin. Thanks for watching.